In this video, we are going to discuss the principles of how to calculate the sample size using computerized statistical packages so that we can be acquainted with this important application of software for determining the sample size. There are many computerized statistical packages which can be used for calculation of the sample size, and you are advised to have access to them through the internet. There are some of them free, some of them you need to have subscription. For example, we have PASS and other multiple softwares that can be used. But today we are going to discuss about the EPI Info, which is can be freely downloaded from the website of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Atlanta, in the United States. And the address of the website is shown here so that you can access and download it easily. The following are the suggested steps to be followed. First, access to the website address, which is shown here, and then download. The download screen will show the download installer and download zip file, and then we can proceed on with the download through the following stated instructions. Then after download the EPI info and set up in your PC, then you can start using estimation. So you use it for estimation of the sample size. Also, you can download the free user guides that can help you to understand exactly the characteristics and the criteria, and all you can find answer for all your questions about the EPI Info program as a software. Then we go to how to open the stat calc, which is an important part for estimation of the sample size. For example, from the EPI Info 7 main menu, you can select the stat calc, and then you select one of the following calculations using up and down arrow keys, or click on sample size, power, and chi-square as shown, shown in the screen. I will show it after I finished discussing this part. You can also select calculation by pressing the corresponding key on the keyboard that matches the highlighted letter on the menu. If you select the calculation using a keyboard, the calculation appears automatically. If you select the sample size and power calculation, the following calculation options appear, which is population survey, cohort, or cross-sectional, unmatched case control. And then you can use the tab key or return key to move around the different cells for data entry. And then you can enter data for each calculation type. Calculations are performed when you enter data. To modify values already entered, use tab key or click the cell and enter new information. You can use also right click to select the print options in order to print the results. The right click and select save as image option to save a screenshot of your results as an image file. As we can see here, this is the EPI Info program. After being set up, you'll find this screen. You can go to the Start Calc here, and you press on it. Then you can see there are all these options. For example, you can use the Start Calc for estimation of sample size, population survey, or cohort study, or cross-sectional, for unmatched case control, for example, and other functions. So we start with, for example, with population, and then here you can see what you need as inputs here is to have the population size, for example, and then the expected frequency from previous studies, and then the acceptable margin of error, which is usually 5%. But if you need to use other, for example, 3% or 1%, you can change it. But in this case, you need a larger sample size. And then the design effect for you have to enter. If you are using simple random sampling, the design effect will be 1. But if you are using other methods such as stratified sampling or for example, cluster sampling, then the design effect will be about 2. Then what you need to have the population size that you can enter here so that you can easily calculate. For example, if you have a population of, for example, here we can have, for example, population of for example, 12 science, 3, 5, 9, for example, this is a population. And then from previous study, I have that the expected frequency is, for example, 80, for example, 80%. And then I need the 5% as acceptable margin of error. And this, in this way, you can look on your right, you can see on your right here, you find the sample size estimated in the schedule as shown. 95% is 241. But if you change this, for example, to 50%, if sometimes you don't know the previous frequency, then you can use the assumptions that it is 50%. And in this case, for the 95% confidence level, you can see that the sample size is larger, which is 373. This is about the estimation of sample size when using the EPI info for population surveys or descriptive studies. If you want to, we are going to also discuss how to estimate the sample size for the case control and for the cohort studies later in this video. For example, if we want to estimate the sample size for match case control, we can use the EPI tool for the estimation of the sample size for match case control studies. And this utility can be accessed through the following address, which is Animal Health Service EPI Tools Epidemiological Calculation, which is available in the website. The utility calculates the sample size required for a case control with a specified level of confidence, the power and case control groups of equal size. Inputs is required the expected proportion exposed in the controls and the assumed odds ratio and the desired level of confidence, and as well as the power for detection of a significant difference between the two groups. The program outputs the sample size required for the specified inputs, and also it gives a summary table of sample sizes for a range assumed of assumed proportions exposed and odds ratio. We can see here in the EPI tools, if you follow the address, you can easily find it, and then you can find sample size for a case control. When you click on it, it will give you this screen. You can see the expected proportion exposed in the controls, which is, for example, 0.05, and the assumed odds ratio and the confidence level is 0.95, and the desired power is 0.8. And then you submit. It will give you in the estimated sample size for specified values that you have, which is, for example, per group 98, and the total is 196. And then also you can have also the sample size for range proportion exposed and odds ratio. If you change your odds ratio, for example, to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, then you can have also from this schedule so that you can get your sample size easily for case control. Then also we can use, we are going to talk about the sample size for unmatched case control, another software that can be used for estimation of the sample size for unmatched case control study. We can use the open EPI and open the source statistics for public health, which is available in the following address. You enter the desired confidence level and the power and a hypothetical percentage of exposure among the controls, and either an odds ratio or a hypothetical percentage of exposure among the cases. The results are presented using method of Kelsey and Fels and with a continuity correction. Also, we can talk about the estimation of sample size for unmatched cohort study. We can use the EPI tool for estimation of the sample size for cohort study, which is very important for us to understand that how can we use it in estimation of the sample size. This utility calculates the sample size required for a cohort study with specified levels of confidence and power of cohort. As we can see here, we can go back, we can see here the estimation for sample size of a cohort study using the EPI tool. Also, enter the expected incidence in unexposed and the assumed relative risk and the confidence level and the desired power, and then you submit. It will give you immediately the in the screen. You can see the sample size for specified values, and as well you will have the sample size per group, per range of incidence values and relative risk. Then we can talk about that the inputs you need if the expected incidence in unexposed cohort, as we have just seen, the assumed relative risk and the desired level of confidence and the power for detection of a significant difference between the two cohorts. Then the program outputs, as we have seen, it will give you the sample size required for specified inputs and also outputs the summary table of sample size for a range of assumed incidence values and relative risks. Now we'll talk about other considerations which are important when we estimate the sample size. We can talk above all these approaches, whether through the use of the formula or the use of the software. The assumption is that I am going to use simple random sample as a sampling method. This is not always the case, as sometimes the researcher may use other sampling methods or techniques such as cluster sampling and stratified sampling. And in such case, you have to change the design effect, because the design effect usually, as we have mentioned, for simple random sampling is usually 1. But the design effect is usually 2 if other sampling methods like the cluster sampling and stratified sampling are to be used. Thus, the sample size is doubled, and here we ensure that the sample size is representative for the parent population. Also, we are going to talk about the design effect, which is a measure of variability due to selection of survey subjects or the study subjects by any method other than simple random sampling. If you are using, for example, cluster sampling or stratified sampling or multi-stage sampling, then you have to consider for the design effect. It is defined as the ratio of the variance with other types of sampling to the variance with simple random sampling. And usually, cluster surveys, for example, have a design effect greater than 1. This means that the variability is higher than for simple random sampling method. Well, we also need to bear in mind the likely response rate. Allowance needs to be made for non-response to a survey so that this can be added to the required sample size. For example, if our calculations indicate that we need the minimum sample size of 200, for example, then we only expect about 70% response rate, then we will need to select an initial sample size of 286. And you can just divide it simply by zero point 0.7 in order to allow for possible non-response. It's particularly important to make an allowance for the non-response when planning, for example, hospital-based longitudinal study. You are interested to study, for example, the ischemic change that can occur for the cases of diabetes, for example, diabetes mellitus, when the same individuals, the diabetic patients, will be followed up repeatedly over a period of time, 6 months or 1 year or whatsoever, since a cumulative non-response in such case can result in the final wave of the survey being too small to be analyzed. So we have to care for the non-response while estimating the sample size. We have to consider for the non-response so that we can estimate appropriate sample size that will generate for us better results. Thank you very much.